going to use black and white for this sphere light study and looking at the values of that. So I already have my black and white here. I have my brushes ready. And I want to start by making a key for myself and making sure that that I can get the full spectrum. There we go. So I'm gonna make a key right here. First, just starting out with our basic white. That might not even, you might not even be able to see that unless I move my page for the wetness. And then I'm gonna take the tiniest bit of black, add it in for that first step on our value scale, and lay it right next to it. You might even want to mix more each time, that way you can continuously add, but for now, since I'm doing a value scale, I'm just going to add a little bit more black to my pile of white each time. And if I feel like I added too much, I can just add a little bit of white back in, because I feel like it got a little dark very quickly, because obviously black is going to show up more than the white. Okay, so a little darker. Even wiping some of it off on the edge. Let's see how that does. It's about the same, so I could have gone a little bit more. Also depends how much you're applying onto the paper. So I'm gonna add even more black. My goal is to get about 7 different shades. A little bit more. This one's really gradual. A little bit more. It's mixed up enough. And then our darkest value. So you want to have like an even transition throughout, kind of step by step, and then I'm gonna just label them. So this is 1, this is that pure white, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I do have an 8, but like I said, some of them got a little close together. You do want a nice even step, so make sure you can see the difference there between them. But you get the idea. Each time you're just adding either a little bit more black or a little more white, and this is going to determine where our values are going to go. This is going to help us place those. So 1 is going to be the highlight. I'm going to turn this quick. 2 will be our light tone. 3 is our mid-tone. And it's kind of 3 and 4. 5 would be like a reflected light. 6 is a shadow. 7, core shadow. And 8 is the darkest, and that's our cast shadow. And we want to make sure when we go to do our sphere that we have all of these in our painting. So I'm gonna clean off my brush a little bit. Maybe I'll start with my smaller one, because we're working on the paper. I don't want to go too many layers on top of it, so I'm not gonna be as generous with my paint. Kind of off to the side. I can start with my sphere shape. And then I need to put in the horizon line in the background to show where the table ends or wherever the sphere is. And I'm just starting off with like a very light color, like about a 2 or a 3. That way it doesn't show through when we get to our lightest points. And then I'm gonna want to start drawing in my shadow. There we go. And then depending on how close or far your light source is, that's going to really intensify the transition and how dark this area gets versus how light your highlight is, or how many transitional tones you're going to be using. So in this case, I kind of start referencing in where I make it look spherical, like it's turning. So those can be some guidelines. This is where that core shadow is, and it's going to be fairly dark. The cast shadow will be the darkest. So anyways, I'm going to start filling things in. And this is why it can be nice to have all those tones to the side, because I'll have to remix them. And I like to kind of start just by filling in my sphere with kind of like a mid-tone. And I'm keeping my brush strokes in a kind of circular motion, following the shape of the sphere. I'm just wiping off some extra paint that was getting in there because I don't want that to be too dark. And I'm just kind of giving everything a little bit of a wash around it. That way it's not so bright. And I'm gonna go a little bit darker to about a 4 or 5. While it's still wet, start putting in some of the shadows that are going on around things. And then I'm going to go a little bit darker. A little darker right here where we have our core shadow. And then this can kind of stay where it is because that's the reflected light. But then that shadow is going to get darker. So I'm going to start putting that in. A little lighter on this side because that's a reflected light. And then I can start pushing my values. And I can see that I went a little dark there, so I'm losing some of those transitions. So I'll go back to my white and blend those out. And kind of bring back the edge of my sphere a bit. Because if my light source is here, that means it's coming and hitting about there. And then I can start adding another layer. Ooh, that got really dark into that shadow. So now we're starting to hit this 7 and 8 over here. Well, that's still wet. Oh. Lighten that a bit. And then go back into my highlight. Still a little dark. And where it's it's the brightest, I'll take a little glob of white. Might have to go back once it dries, but that'll be the brightest part. And then I'm just going to redefine some of my table. And as things dry, I can keep going back in with that black, adding some more layers, which is gonna help the values start to pop and give us more contrast. Just because we're using the paper, and even on canvas, you know, it sucks it up, and so sometimes you need to go back. And notice I'm not outlining my sphere. I'm letting the value changes help. And anytime I start to lose values, that's when I just like go back in with the white again. Right now it's a little wet, so I might have to wait. Clearly I'm a little impatient, so. I'm leaving that reflected light there. Just touch up the shape of my shadow and the sphere and something like that. So this is where our light source is. And then I can kind of point out where all these guys are. So highlight, light tone, mid-tone, core shadow, cast shadow. The reflected light's gonna be hard to point to, but that's kind of this area. And then there's more midtones in the background. So